Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Daniel Moss. I am the co-founder and CEO of Patter, and I'm very excited to tell you tonight how we are changing the way the world rents. We can all agree, we're in a housing crisis. Rents have skyrocketed over the last few years. It now requires an average income of $125,000 to rent the average apartment in Canada. That is double the national average. So how do we bridge the gap between landlord requirements and tenant reality? Well, historically, we've used guarantors. But landlords have started to develop an aversion to guarantors. Let me tell you why one of the largest landlords in the country no longer accepts applications with them. A few years ago, they got an application from a student. The student had no income. So, income, mom and dad. Instead of underwriting one tenant, the landlord's now underwriting 3 tenants. And after that process, they decided to lease the apartment to the student. Shortly thereafter, the student stopped paying rent and then fell into arrears. That landlord had to go through the nightmare of reclaiming the unit, and after all was said and done, there was no financial protection for them, even with mom and dad on the lease. That's why landlords have stopped accepting guarantors, largely, because it's an operational nightmare and there's no financial protection, until now. That's why we built Patter Guarantor. We replace the family member with a financial product that's backed by the biggest reinsurance marketplace in the world. We give landlords the confidence to increase their leasing funnel while protecting their bottom line. It's easy to apply. Tenants just verify their ID, upload a few documents, link their bank accounts, and they're able to show landlords that they're not only qualified to rent the unit, but their rent is backed by Patter. We are now opening doors for renters who didn't have a chance before. Think new Canadians, self-employed, gig workers. They didn't fit into the typical landlord underwriting box of perfect credit score, 6-figure incomes. That's where we bridge the gap. We also partner with realtors and immigration law firms to help them pre-qualify before they even start their rental search. And lastly, we embed directly in property management software to help the tenant qualify right on platform. This is a big problem. There are 55 million rental units in North America. 2/3 of them are owned by business corporate landlords. And if we capture 10% of the net new leases, we will be looking at a $5 billion top line run rate. Now, this isn't a new solution. The guarantors have insured over $1 billion of rent in the US. Our plan is to put up a beachhead here in Canada over the next 18 months, and then expand our product lineup before exploring new geographies. We get this problem. We're obsessed with this problem because we live this problem. My co-founder Claire and I are real estate operators and investors who've spent our whole careers in tech. I spent 3 years leading operation and strategies at Canada's fastest growing insurance technology platform alongside the CEO, and Claire's a 2-time exited CTO, 2-time CTO of the Year award winner. We are backed by industry leaders in real estate, technology, finance, and insurance. To date, we've raised $1.1 million. We have regulatory approval and an insurance partnership to launch Patter Guarantor. We have pilots going live with industry-leading property managers and operators, and all of this launches in a few weeks. We're on a mission to make renting more equitable and accessible for everyone involved. We believe in that mission so closely that we're giving 1% of our revenue back to fighting the housing crisis here in Canada. Thank you so much for your time tonight. My name is Daniel Moss. I'm the co-founder and CEO here at Patter. Glad you joined me in learning how we are changing the way the world rents.
Didn't even have to clap you off. Well done. First question goes to Elena.
Thank you so much. Is this working? Yeah, okay. My first question is, can you explain to me a bit more about the tech stack that landlords are using and where this sits in that stack?
Absolutely, it's a great question. So landlords in Canada largely use Yardi. In the US, they've actually integrated this directly into the property management software. For us, we have a standalone application because you have to be quite big to get to that direct integration. So it's as simple as a landlord has a tenant in their leasing office that they would like to reapply with a guarantor. They send that tenant to patter.com. They fill out our questionnaire, link their bank account, upload a few documents, and then they can, on the spot, qualify and buy our insurance policy.
Thank you. And why do you think no one's done this in Canada yet?
The Residential Tenancy Act in Ontario specifically is one of the toughest in the world. It took us 12 months to financially engineer this product to make sure it abides by FSRA, the insurance legislation, and the Residential Tenancy Act, the real estate legislation. So I think people have tried before, and we just happen to be a team that feels like we have the right skill set to bring it to market.
Yes, I'll go next. Great presentation.
Thanks.
Jurisdictional solutions are a challenge. You just said 12 months to figure out Ontario.
Yes.
There's 50 states south of the border and a lot of provinces and territories. How are you going to tackle national coverage when they're all complicated matters?
So I wouldn't say, we started with Ontario because it's the hardest. If we can launch here, we can launch everywhere. So BC and Alberta are our next jurisdictions, and then we plan to kind of work our way across to the East Coast. Hyper-localizing isn't necessarily a huge issue here. I came from Intuit before my previous job, and TurboTax had the same issue. They launched satellite offices all over the country to make sure that they were able to hyper-localize. We're lucky that the policy documentation that we put together works across the country. We're really just making sure that the product structure is on side with the local legislation. So Ontario's the toughest. Everywhere else is going to be easy compared to Ontario. So we feel like we can hyper-localize at scale after we launch in Ontario.
I don't know if we still have time. Revenue model.
So
Let's talk a little bit about that. Not clear. I'd like to understand margins. What are we looking at?
absolutely. So we have an insurance partnership with one of a syndicate of one of the largest reinsurance markets in the world. We share 50-50 on the revenue. The way we get paid is the tenant qualifies and then pays for the product. So it's completely free for landlords. Costs the tenant on a dynamic range depending on their profile. It can be as cheap as 30% of 1 month's rent. It's a one-time fee and will cover up to 36 months of tenancy. And the margins on our 50% are over 70% at launch. So the revenue, our top line directly, is over 70%.
How big is the market size in Canada alone if you are going after the ICP that you mentioned and with that revenue model?
So in the residential real estate market, it's about 500 million. It is substantially bigger in the US. That's why our plan is to put up a beachhead here. I didn't get to chat about it earlier, but we actually also have a commercial product that we are launching. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.